Can you guys hear me? All right, well, yeah, I guess you can now. So, I'm a roamer, so you guys got to bear with me. Is that okay? All right, I'm a little bit informal, so I hope that doesn't bother you. And what we're going to do today is that we're going to do a couple of things. One of the things that we're going to focus on is this intersection between social and emotional learning and mathematics teaching and learning. And I think there's some real intersection as we begin to look at and examine practices. And so we're going to look at a classroom video. So here's the plan. So we're going to unpack this kind of positionality as it relates to access, equity, and empowerment. We're going to look at a task. We're going to watch a video clip. So we are going to do some math. So hopefully you have your pencils and paper with you, so we'll do some math. And then we'll discuss this idea of identity, agency, positionality, and competency. Is that cool with you? Let's try that again. Is that cool with you? All right. So one of the things I want to talk about is this, as being president of NCTM, one of the things that we unpack is our idea around access, equity, and empowerment. And I kind of highlighted the red part here as it relates to equity and thinking about how it might play out in classrooms and schools. So equity is each and every student having access that empowers them to do the mathematics they want to do in their future endeavors. And so when we think about how mathematics supports students and supports teaching, it is thinking about how do we move students forward and how do we support students in whatever future endeavor they have for themselves. So we have to think about equity as it relates to not only in the broad space of generalities around students, but the individual student themselves. And so as we begin to think about this, I like to tie this to the 8 effective teaching practices. And if you're not familiar with these teaching practices, these are the teaching practices that NCTM has identified in principles to actions. And we identified 8 of those practices, with the first one here, establishing a mathematical goal, looking at the connection between that and the task, building procedural fluency for conceptual understanding, and then this big box here is around discourse. And there are 4 practices around discourse. And so we're going to unpack some teaching practices as it relates to access, equity, and empowerment. And particularly, here are the 8 practices again. And I just want to highlight 4 of those 8 practices. And so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to highlight the 4 in red here. So implementing task and task. So when we think about mathematics tasks, I see tasks as being related to identity. The kinds of tasks we give students is related to how they see mathematics. So if we give students tasks that focuses on process and procedures, they see mathematics as doing a set of processes and procedures. Consequently, they see themselves as doing processes and procedures. And so they position, their identity is connected to the task and the way that they do it. However, if we look at tasks where students have to explain, justify, and reason mathematically, they see mathematics as explaining, justifying, and reasoning. So therefore, they see themselves as engaged in those practices. So the kinds of tasks that are related to the kinds of things that students have to do with those tasks have significant impact on how they see themselves as doing mathematics, so as doers of mathematics. The second one I want to highlight here is facilitating mathematical discourse. So if we think about our classroom, who is heard, and let's think about this, who is heard is often positioned as the one that's being competent. So who is heard is often positioned as competent. So that student who gets to share their thinking or share their solution is often positioned as the competent person. So how do we broaden that space of competency by facilitating discourse where more students are able to explain, justify, and engage in discourse in the way that we hope that students will engage? So we want to broaden that space of discourse. And the way we broaden that space of discourse is getting more students participatory in the discourse. The third one I want to highlight here is number 7 here, and this idea of productive struggle. And productive struggle, how many of you are familiar with the term productive struggle? So it's not foreign to you. I see productive struggle as related to agency. Now, when we think about agency, Agency is connected to identity. So if I see myself as a doer of mathematics, that's my identity. If I see myself as a doer of mathematics, I now engage in the behaviors that doers of mathematics engage in. And that is what we describe as agency. It is. So you can see how task is connected, because task is connected to my identity. And then if I see myself as a doer of mathematics, I now engage in those behaviors, which is now connected to agency. So they're not independent or mutually exclusive. They're highly connected. And so productive struggle. We want students to engage in productive struggle, because productive struggle allows them to engage in sense-making. It allows them to justify, reason, and think about the issues that they're engaging in as they work through a mathematical task. And so that positions them and develop their own sense of agency as they move forward there. And the last one is competency. And I'm going to expand on competency a little bit more, but competency as it relates to eliciting students' evidence of their thinking, again, who's often asked to share their thinking is often positioned as the one that's being competent. So with that framing in mind, we're going to watch a videotape. While it is a high school classroom, it has strong relevance across the grade band. I love this video because of if we focus on the practices that are within the video. And so we're going to watch a videotape of Shalonda Shackelford. She's a 9th grade teacher. She's teaching Algebra 1. Class size is 26. And this is April of the school year in Hamilton County, Tennessee. Anybody know where Hamilton County, Tennessee is? All right. So you must be from Chattanooga, right? Okay, so close to these things are all important. Context matters. Context matters. And so in order to do that, one of the things that I want to connect back to this idea of SEL, social emotional learning, is I borrowed from one of my colleagues at the University of Texas in San Antonio, Crystal Calinet Craig. And I do this with my group of boys. In the summer, I teach a group of 7th grade boys mathematics. And so these are the rights of learners in mathematics. So we're going to do a math task a little bit later. But in order for you to do the math task, and we're going to share with one another, you need to know what your rights are. All right? So here are your rights. You have the right to be confused. That's highly connected to productive struggle. Just like you have rights, you have the responsibility. So if you are confused, you have the responsibility to turn to your neighbor or turn to someone in front of you or behind you to bring clarity about your confusion. You cannot sit there and be confused without trying to gain clarity from one of your, let's say classmates for the sake of argument here, without engaging one of your classmates. So you have the right to be confused, but you have the responsibility to gain clarity. You have the right to claim a mistake. So while you have the right to claim a mistake, you have the responsibility to know why your mistake was a mistake. And that might mean that you have to engage with someone around you about why your mistake is a mistake. You have the right to speak, listen, and be heard. But you also have the responsibility to not dominate a conversation mathematically. And so you have to make sure that everyone is heard. You also have the right to write, do, and represent only what makes sense to you. You also have the responsibility to make sure what makes sense to you, explain why it makes sense to you to others. So your responsibility is explaining your sense-making and why it makes sense to you to bring clarity to others why that makes sense to you. So I like to use this in classrooms because then it allows students the opportunity to know where they enter. It gives them the social emotional space to know, hey, I can make a mistake. Hey, I can engage with my classmates. Hey, I can connect with others. So, are we ready? We're going to do a task, all right? Are you ready? Pencils and papers ready? So here we go. Here's the task. Here's the task. Let me read it aloud and you can unpack this. A bicycle traveling at a steady rate and a truck are moving along a road in the same direction. Let the graph show their position as a function of time. Let B of t represent the bike's distance, and K of t represents the truck's distance. If you notice the x-axis is in time, in seconds, and the y-axis is the distance from the start of the road. So this is what I would like for you to do. You see two graphs here. Which one's the bike and which one's the truck? I want you to take a couple of seconds, just think about it yourself. Which one's the bike? Which one's the truck? And how do you know? So think, think, think. So in the interest of time, turn to your shoulder partner. Which is the bike, which is the truck? Talk to them. Take some seconds. All right, so here we go. Which one's the bike? Which one's the truck? I'm just going to call on one person really quickly, and then we'll go from there. So which is the bike? Anybody want to volunteer or be volunteered? All right, volunteer right here. The bike is the straight line because, say it again? It's traveling at a steady rate. And so by default, the other graph must be the truck? That's what you're thinking? Do you agree or disagree? So we see some agree. Anyone disagree? We see a disagree. All right? So.
The biker is going to get tired at some point.
So you said the biker is going to get tired at some point. All right?
And very speed.
And very speed. But let's go back to the problem here. What does the problem tell me here? The bike is traveling at a steady rate. It may get tired. The cyclist may get tired, but we know right now it's traveling at a steady rate. So here's my next question. Just by default, and certainly if we were in the classroom, I would do this differently. But, I'm feeling the pressure of time, so I'm going to move just a little. If we argue that this is the truck here, this one right here, what's going on right here? Ooh, I hear people. I see a hand back here. It shift gears. All right. Anybody else? Right here.
Either a stop sign or a signal light. That 9 seconds for about 4 seconds.
So either a stop sign or a light. If it's a light, man, you guys in Texas have some quick lights, don't you? I mean, it's red now and it's green. So I'm sorry. You're driving your truck and you're gaining speed, okay.
And all of a sudden, in 9 seconds, my whole truck can just pop.
Boom, yeah. So why don't you go through the window? Yeah.
And then I recover some ground in 4 seconds and then.
So
That car requires, I don't know, maybe I'm just not a truck driver.
So the question here is this truck all of a sudden just stops. It must have some really powerful brakes, or it just stops. So let's just unpack and think about this. So here, we're going to watch a classroom, And we're going to see a teacher, Shalonda Shackelford. She's going to have an imaginary friend. She's going to introduce her imaginary friend to the classroom, and then she's going to invite 2 students to come up front and talk about the graph of the truck. And so I just want you, as you look at the video, I just want you to do a couple of things. I just want you to notice how the students are participating. And then we'll go from there, all right? So here's a quick video. Here's Shalonda's classroom.
And we know we're talking about the truck, but he got to this point right here and Chris was like, ooh, that means that the truck was moving along in a straight path at that time. Do you agree? Don't say anything out loud, get everybody get a chance. Do you agree or disagree with Chris? Who agrees with Chris? Jacoby agrees with my imaginary friend. Jacoby, step up, baby. Who disagrees with him? Who disagrees with him? I'm gonna go with, okay, Charles. Charles said I've been raising my hand forever. Charles, step up. All right, here we go. Make sure you justify your reason. All right, so Jacoby agrees, so I'm gonna let Jacoby go first. If you disagree, say something. Well, I'll try to let Charles do it first and see what he's got to say. All right, go ahead, Jacoby.
Okay, so I agree because as you can see, he was not going in the constant rate right here. Then he stopped. I can see that he stopped, and then he was going real straight. So that's a constant rate. If you go straight and you don't have no curves or anything, that you're going up a straight path. But then he came back up. He came back up and he started back without a constant rate.
Okay. All right, so Jacoby, step to the side because it's Charles' turn. Charles, did you hear what he had to say? Or do you still disagree with him?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, tell me why.
Okay, I disagree because when he stopped, the distance, he wouldn't keep going because time is still going. He's not moving no more. And then he probably sped up when he came, right there.
All right.
I disagree.
You still disagree with him? So go back, because Charles, he still didn't understand. So, but Jacoby, I need you to be looking at the graph. I need you to be looking at the graph. Charles, say it one more time to him on what you feel.
Okay, when he came up here, he stopped. Time is still going back because he's not moving no more, so the distance isn't going nowhere. And then he speeds up because he's moving again.
Wait a minute, hold. Cause you said he stopped right here, but then I'm still not understanding. What did he do right here?
Sped up. He left. He gone.
No, he stopped.
No, he stopped.
I'm talking to Portia right now, correct?
Yes.
Right.
All right, time is still moving, right?
Yes.
Am I moving?
No.
No.
No. See if you can tell me what I'm talking about now. Go ahead.
I kind of agree with the class because how you said how it's not distance and speed. I get what the class is saying now, that he stopped right there, and I still disagree with Charles, but I agree with the class that he stopped right there and then he sped up because, when that's on a flat surface, I learned from you that it stopped, so it stopped and then it sped up.
All right. He still disagrees with Charles, but he agrees with the class, right? So, but here's the thing. I mean, and I'm just going to move along. I would do this a little bit different. I'm going to move along a little bit. So we have Charles and Jacoby. They're up front of the class. They both are explaining their thinking. This is April of the school year, right? And can we all agree that, Jacoby was the kid in the yellow shirt, that his answer is not completely correct? But what we can think about is Jacoby is in a space where even in the incorrect answer, he's able to be participatory, and that no one in the class says, man, what is wrong with you? Or said, there's something about that space. What did Ms. Shackelford do to create the space that a kid who may have some uncertainty or even just have a wrong answer is willing to be participatory? So I want us to kind of disrupt this idea of competency. Too often, competency is positioned as being right or wrong. What if we think about competency as being participatory? Because when we think about competency being participatory, it allows us as teachers the opportunity to get into students' thinking. It allows us the opportunity to now engage students and unpack their thinking. Great. So it's the idea when we think about competency, it's not necessarily right or wrong, but it is how students are unpacking their thinking, taking the risk. Participation is a risk-taking event. What did Mrs. Shackelford do in her class that students are willing to take the risk, particularly a student like Jacoby, right? So let's just kind of think about that. I want you to now just turn to your shoulder partner. I'm going to give you 30, 20 seconds, all right? Unpack any part of the video. Ready, set, and talk. All right, so let me stop you. So, a quick thought. Anybody have a quick thought? A quick thought that they want to share for the good of the group? Really quick? No? Yes? No. All right, cool. So, so the idea of positioning students as participatory is a way of positioning them as competent. And I think how this plays out in Ms. Shackelford's class is just then allowing students to kind of take those risks, particularly because when students are in front of their peers, it's a risk-taking event. And so when we think of it as a risk-taking event, you know, how do we create the space that students are willing to take the risk that we want them to take? But the other thing I want to kind of unpack is thinking about how did Ms. Shackelford construct this? This is April of the school year. So here's a suggestion. So I think that she orchestrated this discussion because you saw that she may have dipped down in the back of the classroom. She made herself kind of invisible in that space, but she also was purposeful with the kinds of questions that she asked the students. So I'm going to make an argument that she engaged in what we call productive mathematical or mathematic discussion. So I'm going to say that she first, as she was planning the lesson, she anticipated the likely responses that students may have to this particular task. So this is in the planning phase. And then, as the lesson unfolded, she then monitored the classroom or monitored her students to see what kinds of tasks or how the thinking played out. I'm going to argue that she chose Charles and Jacoby because of what she anticipated. She wanted those two ideas to be in the public space in her classroom. She didn't choose those two students because of who they are. She chose them because of her anticipation of those two likely responses, and she wanted that debate to unfold in the way it unfolded. So that was orchestrated because of the way she planned it out. After that, so that would be the selecting part. So she anticipated the likely kind of responses. She monitored the classroom. She selected Charles and Jacoby based on her anticipation. The two other things that we did not see is then she sequenced students' responses in a way that deepened their understanding about the mathematics. So she purposely chose because she anticipated their likely responses, she selected students based on what she wanted to bring forward in the conversation, and then she connected those ideas. So it is plausible that we can orchestrate the discussion, and this may be challenging for novice teachers, because sometimes novice teachers don't have the experience yet to anticipate and to orchestrate that discussion. And this is why math coaches and more experienced teachers come into play to help think about the likely type of thinking that may come up in a lesson based on a task, and then thinking about, based on what we anticipate, how we are going to orchestrate and select these ideas as they come forward in the classroom. So as teachers, I think we can orchestrate the discussion and think about how we do that purposefully. I am going to skip a little bit because I think I am running low on time. So what I will do then is I will talk about some academic speak. This is connected to my own research around identity theory, so situated mediated identity theory. And I'm going to be really quickly with these three ideas. There are three constructs that fall under this and how it plays out in classrooms and how it's connected to social emotional learning. Our identities are situated in context. And I'll use myself as an example. In some spaces, I'm Dr. Berry. In some spaces, I'm Rob. Because of the context, it engages my behavior based on that context and the people in the context. When somebody walks up to me and says, "What's up, Rob?" That elicits a set of behaviors for me because it's mediated by how one refers to me. When I'm in church, my identity is mediated by how the context. When you think about children, you think about students in classrooms, their identities might be situated from classroom to classroom. And so if their identity is situated and mediated from classroom to classroom, think about it. There's a kid who is great in one class and extremely difficult in another class. It's probably the context and the people in that context that mediates their identity. And it may be the content as well. But there's something, as educators, we have to figure out what is mediating that student's identity, because we know that student can engage in what we might find in appropriate ways in one context, but not another. So we know they can engage pretty positively. So let's find out what's mediating their identity in a different context where they're not engaging. Positionality. So the third construct around this idea of positionality is that how we position students. And so positionality is often connected to how do I situate or position students based on how they engage with me or engage in that context. And so all too often, particularly because my research focuses on black boys, too often sometimes what happens with black boys, if their identity is mediated in one context and is mediated in a way that is not always positive, and then they react in a negative way, now they're positioned in a deficit way, now they're in trouble, and that contributes to this whole cycle of discipline that plays out. And so it's then how do we think about positioning, broaden the space of positionality that all students can be participatory? And this is where discourse comes into play. It might be thinking about our instructional practices. How do we broaden the space of instructional practice? Talking in dyads, talking in one-on-one, having students to rehearse, having students to practice, those kinds of things that kind of moves gets them to think about the ideas first before they're in the public space. Going back to Jacoby, he was chosen for a reason, even though his answer was incorrect. But imagine in a different context, Jacoby was dismissed. And imagine, so you can imagine, Jacoby's dismissed, and then you can see, I didn't even want to do it anyway. Now he gets in trouble. So you can see how it all plays out. And the last idea is agency. Having the sense of agency to engage and be doers of mathematics and engage in the behaviors that we hope the students will engage in. So I am skipping a little bit because I'm a little bit out of time and I didn't use all my slides here. But there are a couple of things I want us to think about as it relates to mathematics. I think that we have to find tasks that put students at an impasse. How do we create a find task that supports an impasse? An impasse might mean that they have to make decisions about their thinking or that might have multiple entry points. I also think that we have to think about the ways that we engage in discourse. Broaden the space of discourse so more students are being participatory. And I think we increase participation by engaging in discourse. And so that might be questioning, it might be listening to students answer, use of representation, productive struggle. And then the last thing is supporting risk-taking and competency and affirming one's identities. Jacoby, the student who got the wrong answer, his identity was affirmed although he had the wrong answer, because even if he's called on in a later lesson, he's still willing to participate. He's still willing to participate. So I want to leave you with one of my favorite books. I'm a father. How many of you are familiar with this book, The Important Book? How many of you have read Goodnight Moon, Goodnight Cows Jumping Over the Moon, Goodnight Stars? All right, so the same author here, Margaret Wise Brown, wrote this book. And I borrowed a page from the book. The important thing about rain is that it's wet. It falls out the sky, it sounds like rain, it makes things shiny, and it does not taste like anything, and it's the color of air. But the important thing about rain is that it's wet. Here's my hope for you. The important thing about identity, agency, and positionality is, and I hope that you can fill in that blank with one statement. Come up with 3 really good ideas from what we talked about today, and then fill in that last. If you haven't, or you're not able to do that, I don't think I did my job well enough. I hope I did my job well enough today. So thank you so much for hanging in there with me. I really appreciate it.